A sudden chill ran down my spine the moment I saw him again. The stranger standing at the corner, waving at thin air like he knew someone invisible was there. But the street was empty, and I was alone. It all began one evening as the sky was melting into shades of orange and purple. I had just returned home after a long day, eager to relax, when I noticed him, a tall figure standing at the very end of my street. He was motionless at first, but then, slowly, deliberately, he raised his hand and waved. The strange part? No one was there to wave back. The street was eerily empty. I blinked, thinking maybe I was imagining things. But no, the stranger was still there, standing in that same spot every evening just as the light faded. His waves didn't change. They were slow, methodical, almost like a ritual. I tried to see his face, but the shadows cloaked him so completely that all I could make out was a vague outline of his body. No features, no distinguishing marks. It was as if he was a silhouette carved out of the night itself. At first, I assumed it was a prank, maybe some local kid trying to spook the neighborhood. But the timing was always the same, like clockwork. At exactly 7:15 p.m., he would appear, wave silently, and then vanish just as suddenly as he'd come. No footsteps, no sound, nothing but the waving hand fading into the dusk. This routine unsettled me more than I cared to admit. I told myself it was nothing, that I was just tired and letting my imagination run wild. But deep down, I felt a knot tighten in my stomach every time I saw him. Something about those waves felt personal, like he was trying to communicate, but the message was lost to everyone but me. One night, I decided to confront him. I stepped outside, heart pounding, and called out, "Who are you? What do you want?" The stranger didn't respond. Instead, he just waved again, this time slower, almost sorrowfully, and then disappeared into shadows, leaving only a cold silence behind. I stood there, alone on the quiet street, wondering if I'd just met something beyond explanation, or if I was slowly losing my mind. The stranger's nightly visits consumed my thoughts. I couldn't shake the image of that faceless figure waving at nothing, or rather, at someone invisible. Determined to find answers, I began my own investigation. I started with my neighbors, casually asking if anyone else had seen the mysterious figure on the street. To my surprise, many shook their heads, some looked confused, and a few even laughed it off like I was imagining things. But then Mrs. Carter, an elderly woman who had lived on the street for over 40 years, paused before speaking. "There was someone long ago," she said quietly, "a man who lived at the end of the block. He was different, quiet, always watching. People said he had lost someone, his wife, I think, and he used to stand there waving, hoping she would come back." Her words sent a shiver down my spine. Could this be the same man? Could his restless spirit be what I was seeing every evening? I pressed her for more details, but her eyes clouded with sorrow, and she gently changed the subject. Still, her story gave me a new direction to chase. I dug through old newspaper archives at the local library, searching for any record about that man or any strange incidents on my street. What I found was unsettling. A report of a tragic accident nearly 20 years ago. A man named Harold lived within the block, just where I had seen the stranger. His wife had died mysteriously, her body found near the street after a sudden disappearance. No cause was ever determined. Rumors had swirled about Harold's grief driving him mad, about him spending hours on the street, waving into the empty air, waiting for her return. Then, just as mysteriously, Harold vanished. No one knew where he went, or if he was still alive. The pieces began to fit, but it didn't explain why I alone could see the figure. Was I connected somehow? Was the stranger waving only to me? My mind raced with questions as the shadows lengthened, and I knew one thing for sure. This was no ordinary ghost story. It was something deeper, something I needed to face with the pieces of the past laid bare. I felt a mixture of fear and fascination. Harold's story haunted me. A man broken by loss, standing alone on a street that seemed frozen in time. But why was I the only one who saw him now? Why did his wave feel like a message meant solely for me? One evening, I stayed out late, waiting for the stranger's appearance. As the sky darkened, I felt a strange stillness settle over the street. Then, From the corner of my eye, he appeared again. But this time, something was different. The wave was slower, almost pleading, and as I watched, I noticed subtle movements around him. Faint, shimmering shapes barely visible in the dim light, like echoes of the past. I blinked, trying to make sense of the sight. These weren't random shadows. They were people, or something that once was an invisible audience standing just beyond my sight. And then it hit me. The stranger wasn't waving at thin air. He was waving at those lost souls, trapped between worlds, lingering in the street where tragedy struck. The stranger's endless wave was not a greeting, but a desperate call for help, a silent plea for the living to remember, to acknowledge the pain that still clung to that place. I realized I had become part of this haunting, chosen or cursed, to witness what others couldn't. The air grew colder, and I felt a weight pressing on my chest. The waves weren't just reminders of grief. They were warnings. Warnings that the past was not done with the street, and neither was Harold. I stood frozen, heart pounding, as the stranger's hand slowly lowered, his faceless gaze fixed on me. And in that moment, I understood some mysteries are never meant to be solved. Some strangers never truly leave. And some waves are invitations into a darkness I was only beginning to comprehend sometimes. The unanswered grief and pain of the past linger in the present, reaching out in ways we can't always understand. Ignoring these silent calls can leave wounds open and souls restless. Facing the unknown with courage and empathy is the only way to bring peace, not just to others, but to ourselves.